Action. Okay, so you all had a chance to have a look at the two little videos. I find Dr. Pisano's video hilarious because I know him. But anyway, so let's talk a little bit about what that has to do with you. So your first assignment for the class is to present a calculus problem. Okay? And so let's think a little bit. So the reason why we asked you to do a calculus problem because it's something that you've kind of already mastered, so you don't really have to worry about the math. Okay? So we're worrying more about technique. Now, one of the things that you would have read in that little handout I gave out last time was really when you're doing anything, whether it's a piece of writing or a talk, the first thing you've got to consider is your audience. And from that, you should then tailor whatever work you're doing. And so straight away, when we come to the idea of a calculus problem, you can think about, well, what is your audience? Okay? And for this, there are two possible audiences, and that gives like two possible talks. So for one audience, the audience is the teacher. Okay? And so you're a student in the class and you've been told to present a problem, and you go up to the board and present the problem. So if that is your audience, the teacher, and you are the student, what is your goal? What is the most important thing to you?
Displaying your confidence. Displaying that you know what you're talking about.
You know what you're talking about, exactly. And I would say correctness, right? So that would be the most important thing. And from that point of view, Tony's talk would be fine. Like if I was teaching a calculus class, asked a student to do that, and they did that, that would be typical of what a student would do, okay? And they did it correct, not 100% correctly, right? Because he just found the X value, he didn't find actually the point. So, you know, you would have, but basically the teacher would have been satisfied. The other thing which you kind of mentioned is like confidence, or what
competence.
Competence, right. So you've got to show that someone else didn't do the work and that you just copied it, right? And believe me, it's really obvious when someone else has done their homework problem up there doing it. So generally they give correctness, but they're incompetent. Okay. So, but this is not this situation. This is not where we are, you guys. Okay, so you're at the next level above, and that would be something like, you know, a tutor or the teacher. The audience. So if you are a tutor or a teacher, your audience then is the students. Okay, so if the students are your audience, what are your goals now? It's not just competence.
We want them to understand and explain it.
Right. So we're thinking about understanding. You don't want to show that you understand. You want them to understand. So what would be a better word for that? So maybe something like clarity. You want to show, you want to be able to get them to understand not only this problem, but problems like it. Okay, so it's a much broader, I don't know, vision. I don't know what the correct word is. You see what I'm saying? It's not much. Here, you're showing it's one particular problem, and you're showing the correct way to do it. Here, it's clarity and showing how to handle that class of problem. Okay, so if that's the case, then you've got to be clear. So you've got to go into a lot more detail than you would if you're a student explaining to a teacher. And I'm sure you would have seen that that was the main difference between the two videos. In both of them, they were doing the solution, but in the second one, the teacher did quite a good job of talking about not only the problem, but how you would handle that whole kind of set of problems. Okay, so what kind of things am I going to be looking for when you do, it's next week, isn't it, I think? You're supposed to do it. I think that's our first homework problem is next week, where you have to do present a calculus problem. So I want you to present a calculus problem like this, not like you used to. Okay, so what kind of things do you have to do then to successfully do this? So can you think of things that the second teacher did?
Just be thorough. Just be thorough. You can't just glaze over stuff.
So, right, so appropriate detail.
On each step and
Right, and she did little sidebars. She explained why she looked at the. So sometimes she actually maybe went into a little bit too much detail, but yeah. So there's the whole idea of the appropriate detail. What else? What else was different?
From like a presentation standpoint, she was looking at the audience instead of just looking at the blackboard, and I even found Dr. Design kind of hard to hear sometimes.
Right. So maybe we can call that audience engagement. Right, because if you're the teacher, you've got to kind of make sure that people are understanding you, and you've got to sort of play off their reaction, like say if you see people who are puzzled, you know, then to go into greater detail. Whereas if in the first one, you're not really caring, you know, you just want to get it over with. Other things? So other sort of categories of things that, so what about, there was a couple of things that I noticed that she did before she even started the problem. Also compare how Dr. Bazana started the problem with how she started the problem. What did she have on the board?
get the problem written out.
Right. So you want to have clear statement of problem. What else did she have that was right? So a graph or a picture, sort of where appropriate, I guess. But graphical kind of things, particularly in calculus, are really, really kind of useful. So a picture of the thing you're dealing with. What about board work? Do you notice any difference between the board work between the two talks?
mean by that?
Okay. So how did Dr. Vizana just kind of did it in kind of heap, whereas you notice she kind of cut off. She had different segments. She had sidebars. So so I would say something organization. She particularly, I thought she laid out well the material in the blackboard. Other things that I thought she did pretty well is she did pretty good kind of like overview, motivation kind of thing. She did like things in a lot of detail. She did like big pictures before she kind of zoomed in. Yeah, I think that's, so those are kind of things that I'll be looking for when you give your talk, present your problem next week. And so those are things that you should try and check off. Okay? Got mirror reversed and thing, but I'll write this out on Blackboard. Okay, I'm now going to stop this recording. If I can figure out how. Oh, here we go.